All right, welcome to the design critique or the design challenge project critique for our package design. So I'm going to go ahead and switch into Photoshop. I'm going to kind of stall for a few minutes while I wait for people to join. And let me go ahead and get my other screen open. So if I see any kind of chats, I can be able to interact with you guys. I'm just turning that off. Okay. So for this project, I played around a little bit. This is kind of my version of a project. And I did kind of a lotion package design. And I thought I wanted to do kind of a play on gold. So I kind of had this little 3D kind of layout that I did in Adobe Dimensions. So I did this in Adobe Illustrator. I kind of did a flat design, and then I was able to bring it into Adobe Dimensions and apply it to a 3D mockup. Or I could have got a mock-up, a Photoshop mock-up, and applied that same graphic and gotten the same 3D real-world application look to it as well. So I'm just going to pop into Adobe Dimensions and kind of show the file I was working with, just giving people a few minutes to come to the live chat. So I'm just going to pop into Adobe Dimensions, and then we'll get to the project critiques here in a minute. So this is Adobe Dimensions, and if you have not played around with it yet, it's a fabulous program for doing mock-ups and laying out product designs. So I have this one right here. Oh, so I can kind of see how I brought in shapes, and I was able to manipulate kind of the direction of, let me see if I can't grab my product here. I might do a few lessons on how to use Adobe Dimensions because I think it's such a neat program. But you can kind of twist the camera angle, kind of set the scene and the tone for your product mock-up. You can even create an ad from this. Let me see, camera, environment. I need to go ahead and grab my object here. And let me go ahead and grab this. This is a pretty neat program. You can apply some pretty neat materials to it. If I can get this working properly. There we go. So let's take this, I guess it's called a dodecahedron. I'll totally mispronounce that, but a lot of points on this particular geometric shape. I'm going to go over here to materials. So go ahead, materials. I can apply some pretty cool materials. So there's kind of a shiny gold, which we had. There's platinum. And I could take this tool and be able to rotate it. You can catch the lighting too. So you can go over here to camera or to environment and change the level of the lighting, the intensity, and also the rotation of the lighting. So where it's positioned in the sky. So I thought that was pretty cool. That's kind of what I discovered as I was doing my product design is really diving more in depth into this program. So anyway, so I'm just kind of hanging out for a few minutes until some people come in, but I think I'm ready to go ahead and start. So if you can hear me, let me know. So I'm going to go ahead and close mine down. This is kind of the other iteration I did with the product design, kind of a front view of the product. And I kind of added a little bit of a gold bar to kind of play with the whole idea of the product and the background and kind of setting the tone there, and just kind of did some interesting typography. I used different colors that totally paired well with the gold, but very different. It wasn't a dull. I wanted to go with really bright, vibrant type to pair with the gold. So that's kind of my product design. So let's go ahead and start with some of you guys' designs. So I taught a package design class on Udemy and Skillshare about a chocolate bar. And this was one of the submissions in the class. And I wanted to go over this because I thought this was super well done, chocolate bar design. And so it's called Duet. And so they kind of have this neat play where they have the white on the top and kind of the pair of the different colors on the bottom. So you have the white and the dark. I thought that was a really neat play on that. And let's see, I think they have another version. So they have a series, kind of similar how I did my series. They have a series. And I love this photo they use. It's really nice how they zoomed in on the blueberry photo. It kind of really captures the essence of the bar. And so I had them, I did a little bit of critiques, and they went back and they did modify this. So this is an older version before they modified it, but they did remove this gold bar. I suggested doing that to kind of keep it more simple because you already have a gold bar here, and then you don't want to also have gold here because it starts to really compete with the design. It almost becomes too many lines. And you already have this complex pattern. And so when you have lines and patterns, you also have photos, it starts to get too complex. So I had them remove the gold bar and it looked a little bit better. I don't know why I don't have that up-to-date version. And they also set the tone with a wonderful background image. And I really like how it looks on this version. Kind of they took this little ampersand and they duplicated it to make the background. I thought that was really neat and clever. So I love this. And your type is really good. I would probably fine tune the type on the back, maybe make ingredients a little bolder or need a little bit more contrast with your type boxes. So they're all about the same weight. They're the same font and they're the same size and the same color. So there's got to be some kind of contrast there or differentiation between these different type elements to kind of make it not look like one large block, but a nice cohesive different types going on. So maybe bolding ingredients, maybe making that a little bit bigger. You could do all caps for your ingredients and maybe add some spacing. Maybe even make this a little bit smaller. Since there's 4 lines, you could probably make that a little bit smaller. So thank you so much, Rachel. Go ahead and close that down. And moving on to Sandra. I think Sandra's next. Okay, so this is a cereal box design. It's kind of, I really think this is definitely, she hits her target market wonderfully because it's for children and it's bright, it's colorful. If I was a child, I would totally gravitate toward this cereal box in the aisle. So she definitely gets the idea of marketing and how to really stand out among kind of the boring cereal boxes out there. And she has organic large, which I think is really important to hit the target market. Like this is not just your standard cereal. This is organic. It's going to be a little bit pricier, so we need to really make sure that stands out. So I think that's well done. I really like the type here. It's it does kind of go with this organic, smooth. It's got that script kind of hand brush lettering, and I think that works well. And the size is really nice compared to this. So she has a really good balance here. She has one large element, and then kind of a medium-sized element, and then she has some smaller-sized elements. And you notice how there's a variety in her sizes. They're not 2 big, large competing elements or 4 medium elements. There's a little bit of everything. There's a small, a medium, and a large element. And so that's important to have balance in your designs. So I think that's great, Sandra. I don't know if you did all the details or you were able to grab this from somewhere, the nutritional facts, but that's pretty good if you were able to do that yourself. I like this as well. This is great on the side. Not too much going on. You have a lot of kind of boring elements here. You can't help it. That's required by law. So you kind of have some nice, fun, bright stuff happening here, and you keep it simple. You just have 2 elements. So great. I really don't have a whole lot of constructive criticism because I think it's really well done. And I like how you have the actual cereal product here. I think the only thing a client, if this was a real world client, they'll be like, we need to show a whole bowl of cereal because they really want to get their product shown. But I think this is enough of an element to feel like you're showing off the product, especially when you pair a product like, let's say this is an advertisement, you already have the cereal right there as well. So wonderful, fabulous product design here. So thank you, Sandra. All right, who's next? Okay, so this is next. I think this is really bright and vibrant, and I really think of yogurt when I think of these colors. And I like how they have the fruit here next to the product. It kind of really helps me go, okay, well, that is papaya, or I guess this is guava. I can tell that's a guava. I can't really tell if it's a guava if you don't put a picture of a guava there. So I think it really helps the viewer to recognize what type of product it is immediately. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. So I guess this would be kind of like an ad design or kind of a product presentation that you would see in a magazine or a digital ad. And I would probably, I'm just kind of viewing this for the first time, I'd be careful about your type whenever you have lowercase in the case here. I usually don't like to have too much spacing between lowercase letters because it can kind of seem a little stretched out and disconnected. So maybe tighten the spacing a little bit there or find maybe a different type choice. You could even do the same type choice up top, but make it a little bit smaller and maybe put a little more spacing between it. And let's zoom in here. So this texture, let's see, I think this white part's fine. You're able to see the logo fairly well. I would make sure you have a little bit more spacing in this area and in this area. Anytime you can have spacing, and you may not need these lines. You may be able to get away without the lines just to give you a little bit more space. And I'm trying to find a way that maybe you can simplify the pattern a little bit. I think this is a wonderful pattern. I think this is just reflections, these little green things. So you might want to make those white and then do like a transparency and reduce the transparency so it doesn't look like it's part of the pattern. I think you were trying to show reflection in the design. So I'd probably make those white and then screen that back, these little loopy kind of green shapes here. That'll help make the texture look clean. So great. I love all the work that went into this. I see the little bit of drop shadow that they added right here. I would probably even reduce the transparency on this shadowing just a little bit more so it blends nicely, or do maybe a feathering or a Gaussian blur to kind of make sure you blur it out a little bit more and reduce the transparency so it looks a little more blended, feathered, and a little bit less strong. So that I'm being very picky here because I think this is great. I like the texture that you used. So thank you so much. So who is next? All right, Dia. So she redesigned, I believe this is the original design here on the left. So this is the original design. I really like this kind of intricate pattern. But when you think about commercial designs, a lot of times these beautiful illustrations do not necessarily mean an increase in sales. So I think this is actually a good thing that she simplified this to kind of make it a little pop off the shelves, but also be for people to be able to know what product it is right away. These beautiful illustrations are wonderful. They're organic, they feel great, but they also have a hard time standing out in all the busyness. Sometimes you have to cut right through to the consumer and be very simple. And that's exactly what they did here, is they reduced the clutter. They reduced, looks like they removed the beautiful illustration, but this works. This works very well. So I like how there's a series. These will most likely be together on the shelf. So she's kind of being able to pick colors that work well together. And I like that. And I like this beautiful, I guess it's kind of a wheat stalk here in the background. Let me see if I can zoom in. Right here, this little wheat stalk, how that's screened back, that is perfect. It's not too strong that it overpowers the other elements, but it's also not too light that you can't really tell what it is. So I think, and I wonder if they did the illustrations themselves or if they were able to download some illustrations like the lemon and the apple, but if they did that by hand, that's excellent job. Excellent pen tool work in Illustrator if this is what you used. And the type is wonderful. I think this is a beautiful sans serif type, and they have, and notice how they have balance. You have kind of this bolder type here, and then you have this lighter type here. And you see how they're not competing with each other, but they work together because they have the contrast element. So that works well. The only thing I would do is add just a little more breathing room right here. Right here between the I and the D, there needs to be just a little bit more breathing room. So that means you may need to make that top word just slightly smaller to be able to get that a little bit. So it just feels a little too tight, like they're almost running into each other. So just a hair more breathing room there. And I think you'll be really great with the typography. So excellent job. I really like kind of your redesign in terms of being able to grab that consumer with a more simplistic look instead of going with the artistic look, which doesn't always work when you're on a corporate environment selling hundreds of different cans. You got to really stand out with a clear cut message. So beautiful job. You guys are doing awesome. Okay, so this one was submitted today. I haven't had a chance. It's my first time looking at it in depth, so you get to kind of see my raw kind of thoughts on this. And my first thoughts are I like the overall balance. I really think this graphic right here, I need to get a new color because that's not standing out, is it? Let me grab a blue. Let me go back. So this little graphic here looks great. I don't know where you got it, but you cut it out well. It looks fabulous. Great balance with that object. The only issues I'm seeing right away is maybe the type here. It's just not popping out enough to me, and I think it's because you see the orange and the red and it's blending in a little bit. So maybe try doing that with a white, or making natural soda, keeping that the orange color and making just this white, because it really has to pop out, and maybe tightening the space between the letters so you can make it a little bigger and going across diagonal. I like the diagonal look to this. This is a very dynamic design. You have this kind of diagonal thing going. You also have a circular seal, and you also have a photo, and then you have a straight kind of bar across the bottom. So you have a lot of different types of design elements coming together, and it makes it dynamic. So I would definitely work on the type. I feel like the rest, like where the pure ginger is down here at the bottom, I think this whole thing is really good. I think it's just the type that's bothering me. Maybe tighten that and find a way for that to really be clean and simple, because you have a lot going on. And so any way you can maybe clean up that type. Maybe you don't use the grunge effect for this type. Maybe you use a simple block sans serif font, and you don't have the kind of grunge look to it because it's making it more complex and it's competing a lot with the other elements. And also the circle thing, I would be careful not to put anything above this little loopy thing. I worked with some printers before and they don't like putting things up top, but that may have changed. It's been a couple years since I did a can design. So I might be careful. It also depends on your country. They may have different rules on, what you need to include and what the weight of the product is. So this may be standard in your country. So it all depends on what country you're from and, where do you need to list the size, in this case, milliliters or fluid ounces in the United States. So I think this is great. I like to see the series. I wish I could see these a little better in the back, but I like kind of the contrast of colors. But yeah, just any way you can simplify it just a little bit more. And I think you could do that with the type and maybe making this a little smaller, perhaps. And maybe I can't really read this, and maybe making the weight on that bottom just a little thicker. So any way we can clean that up, it'd look great. So good job. I think we have one more left. We just have one more left. That's it. Okay, so one more project left. This is Chris, and she did a album cover, and I don't have the back. She did a back, she did a really cool custom illustration, but maybe she can post her Instagram and you can go check it out. She posted on her Instagram. So maybe she could post that later. But this is the front of her album, and I think this is really neat. So when I did a package design, I said open-ended. It didn't necessarily have to be a package design in terms of a soda can, which a lot of you guys did, but it could be anything that contains a package. In this case, it would be a jewel case for a CD. And I think this is great. I love this peachy orange. This is nice. And you know what? That blue pairs really lovely with it. There's a beautiful contrast there. And this type work is wonderful as well. I like this nice spacing. It adds elegance to it between the characters. That's great. I like this border too. I think if you didn't have the border, the background would almost be too much and it would lack a certain quality to it. So I kind of like the border that you have around here. Look how she paired this thin type with this bolder weight type. And once again, contrast, contrast, contrast. That's the kind of key in great design. And this is large and this is small, so she has some nice type hierarchy. And I think she did this custom illustration, which I know she does a lot of stuff in Procreate and she paints. So I think she actually did this, which I think is lovely. And the lines give it a really artistic vibe. So I love this, Chris. So thank you so much for doing a project. Let's see, how long have I been live streaming here? Let's see, probably 20 minutes or so. I wanted to do a Q&A. Let me see if anybody filled out the Q&A. Answer any question. I might do a separate Q&A, give you guys some time to send me some questions, just some general questions about graphic design or going freelance. That could be pricing, it could be what programs do I need to learn, it could be any question about graphic design. So I'd love to answer those questions, and I think what I'll do is I'll do a separate Q&A time just to give you guys time to formulate some questions, because I know a lot of you guys can't make it live, so you'll be watching this later. So to kind of submit your questions ahead of time. So I'm just going to make sure nobody has submitted. Okay, so I'll do a separate Q&A for next time, and I will go ahead and post something in the next few days where you can post your questions. And I want to go live next week, and let me also know what days work for you, because I don't think I'm getting a lot of live participants with this. Let me see if I'm still live here. Yep, I'm still live. I'm not getting a lot of live participants, so I'd love to be able to find a better date and a better time so I can get the max amount of people involved in having a conversation. So while I'm here, I'm going to do my little plug at the end. I would love reviews. If you've taken my classes on Udemy or Skillshare, I would love a review. It helps get my name out to other students so I continue to do this for a living and help educate people in the world of design and freelance. So I'd love a review if you haven't reviewed any of my classes. And I just launched a class last week to help you think about pricing your projects for freelance work, for graphic design projects. So I know a lot of you guys have questions on pricing. It's one of the biggest deals and freelances. How do I find the right price and not price too high and price too low? And this walks you through that. This is also included in my next level, which is my intermediate masterclass. I have kind of the beginner masterclass, which is the great design, and then this is the intermediate. So it's put in the intermediate level, as I have a lot of my freelance classes in the intermediate level. And that's it. I have a design trends, a couple of videos coming out. I'll post on Facebook about design trends for 2019. I already posted a little thing about how I see 3D being a huge trend coming up. And I also see some typography trends. I'm going to have that video that I'm going to launch on Monday. So thank you guys for showing up live. I'm going to go ahead and end the session. So let me know what you think of these live videos. I can continue to do this. And also let me know what project you guys want to do next.